Yeah, I think a good chunk of my foundations in epistemology. I mean, obviously, I've talked about it many times, being a huge proponent of David Hume, and what leads into modern skepticism, being distinct from ancient Greek skepticism. Matter of fact, if anybody wants to know the difference or understand the difference between ancient Greek skepticism and modern skepticism, I'd recommend listening to A.C. Grayling. As a matter of fact, at QED, I'm not going to remember which year, but it was the QED that I was at. So if you find the QED I was at, Asa Grayling, I sat down and did an interview with him, but he also gave a great talk on the history of skepticism and covering the difference. For me, David Hume, um, even for people who don't care about philosophy or don't care about epistemology, that's one to at least read the cliff notes on to get the basics of this. That was the beginnings, and then you get to Karl Popper's falsifiability as a key cornerstone of what makes a hypothesis testable. Um, I'm self-taught. I don't have a credit hour in anything or a degree in anything, and so the process that I had to go through to help me understand things, and I'm a reasonably smart person and a quick learner, but that made it much easier for me to explain complex subjects to other people. I've always said if I don't have any expertise in anything, but if I did, it might be in taking complex situations and making them approachable. And so for me, when it comes down to epistemology, it's Hume's one of Hume's many axioms is the wise man proportions his belief to the evidence, and I just rewrite that to remove any gender reference to it. The wise person has a confidence level that is proportional to the evidence itself for that claim. And I watch people, and what I did was I took stock of everything I believed. When I got to the point where I was like, oh, I clearly can't be a biblically literate uh, Christian. And by that I mean I can't take the Bible literally, not that I can't read it. But once I realized that wasn't the case, it was a process of, okay, what what do I believe in? And
Mm.
if I had moral positions because of my religion, finding whether or not those moral positions were still true and finding a foundation for that was probably the next search. So I kind of went from how do I tell whether or not this is true? And I was active at least in the modern skeptic community. But early on, when we go to like the amazing meeting with James Randi and everybody, there were plenty of theists who fancied themselves skeptics. And I know somebody's already pissed off. I don't know what language restrictions I have on here, but
No language.
none.
You can swear as much as you want. I'm Australian.
Fucking A. So uh, I know somebody's mad that I said fancied themselves skeptics. I'm not saying they weren't skeptics. I'm not the litmus test for skepticism.
Mm.
But when you open a skeptic conference with a talk that says, hey, some people here are religious and we'd rather you guys just avoid those conversations. That's about the time that I was sitting here saying, hey, maybe the skeptic community's got a ways to go as
Mm.
well. I'm disappointed that the atheist community isn't skeptical enough. I'm disappointed that the skeptical community isn't atheistic enough. And the process that I would run through is after I figured out, hey, I don't have a good reason to believe this. So number one is understand the value of a validly structured logical argument. Just learn syllogisms, learn syllogistic forms, look at Aristotle and his band of merry logicians and how they're taking a major premise, a minor premise, and a connecting term. It's always that simple. And they were able to catalog all 256 different potential syllogistic forms and show which of them are valid. And by valid, it means if you put true premises in, the conclusion must also be true. And the second important thing to remember is that because we know that a valid structure is one where true premises lead to true conclusions, that it doesn't matter if the premises are true. It does, but I mean, not for this. What matters is, do you accept them? Because if you're convinced that the premises are true, you have no grounds to object to the conclusion. And that's what we call someone being irrational or being unreasonable. They are not consistent with the basics of reason. And so this is one of the reasons why logical arguments like reductio ad absurdum, where you assume a premise which you don't believe or that you want to test or reject, you assume it's true and you see what conclusion that leads to. Like, okay, if this, we'll assume that the sky, that the moon is made of green cheese. What conclusion do we go to? You construct a syllogism that gets down to a conclusion that you know is false, and now you know that premise that you assumed is unreliable. That's the beginnings. The next most important thing is to realize that a fallacious argument in structure does not mean the conclusion is false. That would be the fallacy, that because there's a fallacy, this is false. No, that's not how it works. A fallacious argument means you have no way to tell whether the conclusion is true or false. That's the beginnings of that, getting used to recognizing logical fallacies and seeing, oh, can I construct an argument for what my position is? Do I have good reason? After that, it's digging into broader principles like epistemology and the philosophy of science, where, as I mentioned, Karl Popper's notions of falsifiability. A hypothesis that isn't testable is useless, and a hypothesis that isn't falsifiable isn't testable. Falsifiable just means there is, in principle, some way to show this is false. I'm getting ready to do a video probably next week because I got in an argument on Facebook with an individual who posted a meme that said deism is unfalsifiable, but theism is falsifiable. And I decided, okay, I disagree with this person, but I'm going to entertain this. And so I went to ask them, okay, how would you falsify theism? And their response was to say, well, it'll take a while, but you can go through each one of the gods and show that they're false. And I after I stopped laughing for like 5 minutes, I tried to explain to this individual that, first of all, that's preposterous. When you have to have both falsifiability in principle and in practice. There's no way you could go through every potential god and show that they're all false. But second of all, you're assuming that you could show that they're all false. But also, you're only talking about the gods that people have proposed. And we know some of those are unfalsifiable. You haven't even begun to talk about the gods that people haven't proposed yet. Presumably, some of those are likely to be unfalsifiable. So in the set of gods that make up theism, or in the set theism, there are subsets of pockets of gods where some of them are falsifiable and some of them are not. If any god in the set of theism is unfalsifiable, then the set is unfalsifiable because there's at least one item in there that can't be shown to be false. And so the guy, I won't go into the whole video. The guy was actually talking about something else, but was so sloppy in how he talked about it that he's sitting here claiming theism is falsifiable. And I'm like, how? I don't see it.
Yeah, I lose so many friends when I get onto Facebook arguments. I try to keep my arguments with Twitter. That's why I'm so spicy there sometimes. But I'm trying not to do that. I don't think it's good for my mental health. But to be honest, so are you saying that, like, so we could have this idea of the Christian God, right? Let's just use the Christian God. And the Christian God could exist. It's unfalsifiable whether or not the Christian God does exist. But the things written about that Christian God may be false. Is that what you're kind of getting at? Like we can't falsify that the Christian God does exist. There could be a Christian God, but maybe the things written about him are inconsistent and are wrong and are false in some way, but there could be a God outside of that actually does exist.
Well, as soon as you start talking about the Christian God, you're no longer talking about theism. You're talking about one item within the set of theism.
Yeah.
And so if you want to say this version of Christianity is falsifiable, I'm fine with that. Just define the version, show me, how you falsified it. That's fine. I'm only talking about the broad set of theism, which includes every different version of theism. So earlier at the beginning of the show, when you said, hey, of all the theistic religions that are out there, which one do you think is most likely to be true? or most probably true. First of all, I'm still thinking. I think I have an answer for you, but we'll hold
Okay.
off for a while,
All right.
because I don't know all the possible theistic gods, so I can only analyze the ones I've heard about or that pop into my head. Generally speaking, like right now, I may change my mind before the end of the show, but right now I'm leaning towards Judaism, and the reason for that is that Islam and Christianity are extensions to that, and so they violate Occam's razor by. That's not true. They don't violate Occam's razor. They violate a principle of parsimony, which is often referred to as Occam's razor, because you've got Judaism and now you're adding things to it, which further complicates it and makes it less probable, I would say.
Yeah.
It's like saying, which is more probable, that I could pull an airplane out of my butt, or that I could pull a pink glittered airplane with the McDonald's logo on it out of my butt. The fact that we have added extra factors make it less probable.